When you hear the title of the presentation, what Colin said earlier about a successful business, that can come across a very arrogant statement. And I absolutely don't mean this to be an arrogant presentation in any way, shape or form. And but it was felt that sharing, if you define it as success, of the process and the evolution of OC Design over the last 4 years may be of interest. So please take it in that context. If there's anything of value in here, great, take it away. If not, I'm sorry, Rodney wasn't here to talk about shark fishing. But anyway. So, successful business development, and just a little bit about why myself. I've spent actually the first 30 years of my career, and by that very old picture you can tell that was I joined this company as a very young age, but a company called the Robert Horn Group, and they were involved in paper, packaging and print, and they were actually probably the largest and most successful company in that market sector, and they were distributors of those products. And I was very fortunate that the leadership and the owners of that business really invested in people and developed the business from one of the smaller distribution companies in the UK to one of the largest and most well recognised across Europe. And I was very fortunate that there was a management team in place that nobody else would employ me, so they employed me and supported my training and development during that process. That certainly has had a great deal of relevance when I invested in OC Design in 2010. And a lot of people say to me, well, why did you get involved in the furniture industry? I've got absolutely no idea, other than it seemed a good opportunity at the time. But it was actually through a friend of mine who had office chairman, as the company, as you'll see, was known as then. And I was looking for a business to invest in. And if anybody knows anything about the paper industry, that's declining. It's two-dimensional and it hasn't got a great future. Whereas I must say the last 4 years I've really thoroughly enjoyed it. I think it's a fantastic industry, great people and fantastic products where there's a lot of innovation, creativity, and you've got the opportunity to differentiate yourself. And I think that's what's really been exciting for me, being involved in a business that has got that opportunity in front of it, and it's really about making the most of that opportunity. So who are OC Design? Well, they were founded in 1990, originally called Office Chairman, and we are today, and was primarily focused on contract seating table systems. We're based in Northampton. We have a showroom presence in London, and today we employ 58 people. As of about 3 weeks' time, we'll employ 62. So, and 4 years ago, we employed about 38. So, which is great from my perspective. That part of continuing the option for small, medium-sized businesses to develop in this market is to create employment and prosperity for the staff, and that's certainly one of our fundamental principles. So clearly, knowing nothing about the industry, knowing nothing about the business, and it seems to be throughout my career going into jobs that I know nothing about, then you ask lots of questions, and that's all you can do. And so really there were 3 key questions that asked a variety of audiences when joining the business, and that was, well, where is the business today? Where do we want it to be? And then how are we going to get it there? And those are 3 questions that I've tended to always stick by, and particularly because if you ask those 3 questions, particularly the second and third one, is that most of the answers are already in the minds of the audience that you're asking the questions of. So it's not really a difficult job, because there's usually people out there with a lot of enthusiasm, knowledge, willing to share it, and that's really been the process of OC Design evolving as it has today. Not really my involvement, but really engaging the team and asking where they think the business can go, and really providing that support and structure to help us get there. So we'll just run through the three key areas now. So this is really where we were, and so bear in mind, if you transport ourselves back to April 2010, so it's actually 4 years tomorrow that I actually joined the business. And this was a business that was actually in decline. It had a turnover of 4.1 million. It had declined from 6.4. It was still profitable, reasonably profitable. The customer base was mostly focused on stationery distributors, where clearly furniture seating wasn't a main consideration for them. The main product was a basic, as I described, a blue office chair. We all know and recognise them. And our top customer actually represented 22% of the sales, which isn't a particularly healthy position to be in. And without being critical of the business at the time, I wouldn't say they had a very clear understanding, certainly didn't have a very clear strategy of where the business was in the market and, more importantly, where it needed to go. So those were the opportunities, shall we say, to correct. What it did have, and the thing that certainly was impressed me the most, was had excellent product and service reliability. Every customer I visited, which I did quite a lot of in the early days, talked about the reliability, the service, the culture of the staff. So that's a fantastic foundation to build on. The flexibility of the business, the sort of can-do attitude. Short lead times, 80% of our seating products are available in 5 to 10 working days. Everybody has a set delivery time, and that's a bespoke product or manufactured or assembled with your own choice of fabric. So that short lead time, success, flexibility, and this great desire to succeed, and that was really one of the the foundations to the business, that you can build on that. It was profitable and it had a reasonable balance sheet, so again there was money there to invest and to grow the business. So really took that as, well, here's an opportunity to do something. Where did we want to be? And our sort of objective, and still is really, our focus is how can we make our customers successful? Because the true customer is actually the consumer who sits on the product in an office somewhere, or in a school somewhere, or in a university or a medical centre, and we only deal through distributors. So clearly they're our invoicing customer, but the true customer is the end user. And it was very much about how can we make our distributors successful in order to make them more relevant and more valuable to the end client. And that was really the mentality that we wanted to which we had and wanted to harness further. So this is where we wanted to be by the end of April 2014 at the latest. And it was really to have a more unique design-orientated product range. That was to allow us to differentiate ourselves further. When you bring standard components as we were doing together, then really it becomes a price issue and an issue of service, and people can catch up on service quite readily. Price clearly can be eroded quite quickly. So we felt one of the core elements was to invest heavily in our product range in order to provide that differentiation and uniqueness. To be recognised as a relevant and valuable supplier to the leading specialist furniture providers, design and build companies, fit-out companies. So again, moving from that predominantly stationary orientated customer base to one where the client was perhaps a larger corporate environment, more design orientated, and you had companies supplying those clients that were more design project fulfilling in their proposition. To gain specifications from the architect and design community, and to have a team that was respected for their knowledge, attitude, and alignment to the company objectives. And that is absolutely paramount to our thinking, in that it's very much about building the most effective team, because none of the development of OC design would have taken place without the strength of the team that's in place. And really the alignment to the company objectives was quite important, because as I'm sure we know, we have people in an organisation that might be culturally aligned, and they perform and they're fantastic and great, and you want to promote them and develop them. Equally so, you might have people that aren't hitting their numbers but are culturally aligned, and really to develop those people to support them and make them more successful. Those that aren't culturally aligned or doing their numbers well, there tends to be one answer to that. But very much a big focus on developing the strength of the team to operate with a high level of efficiency and effectiveness. And then we set this objective to achieve a turnover of £10 million from the 4.1 that we started with, but a minimum of earnings before tax and interest and tax of 10%, and to maintain a strong balance sheet. So, clearly going from that 4 to 10 and remaining profitable was really what we wanted to do. So how did we get there? Again, by around nowish. And it was really focusing on people, marketing, products, customers, and then the financial objectives. And from a people perspective, and it's easy to say people are our most important asset. It can be quite a glib statement, but clearly any business is around the people that is involved in it. But it's actually getting the right people that are in line with the culture of the organisation is certainly what we found to be of most value, and to get their engagement and really to build this team, because where the company was at the time had a lot of great people in it, but just didn't have a common direction and a common orientation. So by asking for everybody's input, then we actually created that engagement, and there was a lot of fantastic ideas, a lot of simple things to fix and develop in a short space of time, but the team that were there actually really felt engaged and being part of the future, and that was absolutely paramount on day one, because remember, this time 4 years ago I knew a lot about paper but not much about furniture or the furniture industry, so getting their input was absolutely critical. Most people still say that is the case, by the way, but we've learned a little bit. Get the right people into the company. Once we had sort of established the orientation, where we were going, where we wanted to be, then it was actually about finding the right blend of people that could both harness where the company was coming from and successful in, and building on that and getting some growth in those areas, as well as about bringing in people that could actually take us to the future. So it was very much about selecting the right range of people to be effective today and, more importantly, take us into the future. And so the selection of getting the right people into the company was quite important, and that really was only 3 or 4 people. So we didn't go on a massive recruitment drive, but it just in key positions gave us that platform. Equally so, and unfortunately, move the non-contributors on, and there were people there that were just not in line with the culture that we wanted to create and the direction that we wanted to move in, and the impact that they were having on the business, and certainly would have been to demotivate those good people and those that did want to take it there. And actually, there were probably 2, 3 at the most of those people, but they were actually having a much greater influence over the negativity of the business and where it wasn't going to go than all the, whatever it was, 30 people that were there that actually wanted the business to go somewhere. So it was an important statement in the early days to actually say we will deal with these issues. Everybody knew were issues, well, let's deal with them and move on. So getting the people right was actually quite important. And then really establishing, again, clear values and expectations. And I think that's one thing where we've identified where we want to go, this is what we need to get there, and this is what the requirement is of everybody in order to take that journey. So through that process, we created a plan and that had a lot of input, and hopefully everybody felt part of. And then from the sales team, obviously when you're saying, right, we're doing 4.1 million now, we want to be at 10 million in 3 or 4 years' time, because I think, well, blimey, yeah, we've got in the middle of recession here, how's that ever going to happen? So started that sort of, again, engagement, building up the budget process year on year, and we'll come on to some the customer activity in a moment, but really getting their ownership of where the business can go and how we're going to get there. And again, it was all about ownership. And regular communication, and this is right from every member in production through to the clerical staff, finance, the sales team, is really communicating this vision of where we want to take the business and maintaining the progress we're making. So we'd have, say, regular monthly meetings, communication, quarterly whole company update, and that was both on what we had done in terms of developing the company as well as the financial results. So people could see the investment we were making as well as the results of that investment. And again, it was very much about building this strong team that everybody felt part and engaged in contributing to the journey that we were embarking upon. Training and development, so it's great getting the right people in place, but clearly they need continual support and development. And I don't know if anybody heard of NLP, Neurological Linguistic Programming. Well, that was a program that we ran for all management, all sales and office staff. And it was really, as those that have seen it know, it's all about self-awareness, maximising your own potential and identifying communication tools, having the mental agility, rapport skills, etc. But really it's about understanding yourself and what you can achieve and how much you want to achieve. So this was about really giving people the belief that, hang on, we're on this journey, am I capable of doing it? Well, I believed they could do it, and it was as much about giving them the belief they could do it. So there was a program that we put in there, some residential courses over weekends, and then coaching in the field so they could see how they actually applied that newfound knowledge in action. So, and then that led on to personal development plans, which is again, those three questions come up. Where am I as an individual? Where do I want to be, and what do I need to do to get there? So it was, continual evolution of that capability. So Henry left university and did a few jobs in between, by his own admission, none terribly productive. And our families know each other, and said to him one day, "So Henry, what are you doing? Have you got a job yet?" He went, "Well, no, I've applied for a job as an admin assistant at Weatherby because he likes his horse racing." "Right, Henry, well, we're actually looking for an admin assistant, Henry. If you're not successful, send me your CV and let's have a look." Well, Henry's CV duly turns up, and Henry has done product design as his degree in university. He can do CAD planning, space planning, all of this, which was also another area we were considering. "Right, Henry, come on board. You sound like the ideal chap." So Henry joined us in January, and after his sort of 3 months, 6 months, sort of development reviews had been conducted in about 6 months. Said, "So what do you want to do now, Henry?" So bear in mind, this is June, July, something of that order. He'd been on the NLP course. He said, "I'd really love to design a piece of furniture and launch it at Clerkenwell Design Week." "Right, Henry, well, let's do that. So Henry then set about designing that range of furniture that he's sitting on, and the following May, which was last May, we launched it at Clerkenwell Design Week, and it's been one of the company's most successful initial launch products. And that's a fantastic, for me, story behind Henry, not just for Henry, but for the rest of the team and the impact that had on the team, because the whole team wanted it to be a success for Henry, and that was that was great. So it was really promoting Henry as a result of that, and then following the NLP training, we've appointed 2 other internal people into management roles that actually didn't believe they could have been in management roles before the training. So and it's been very productive from that point of view. And then in terms of sharing the success financially, it's great, having everybody's input, but again, from a cultural point of view, we don't have any caps on bonuses. We don't raise targets significantly every year. So as the company has progressed, then every employee, from the newest production person through to every member of the team, has actually increased their earnings probably over the last 4 years by about 25-30%. So which in the middle of a recession is quite hopefully rewarding for them, but they've actually put the hard work in. So that's the sort of culture that we've tried to create over the last 4 years, where we value people's input, support them, develop them, and reward them. Now that sounds a fantastic story, but believe there have been things that have gone wrong in between time. It hasn't all been plain sailing, but I must say, generally, since we had the initial realignment, shall we say, then not one single person has left the business, and we've just continued to obviously take people on board. So as you can sense, that's been really it's a great passion of mine, and that we get the right people and develop them, and that it's the team that have absolutely created the success that we've been fortunate enough to enjoy. And this is something that we sort of share with all the managers, the difference between a boss and a leader, which really exemplifies those principles. So coaches employees, depends on goodwill, generates enthusiasm, says we, not I. So very much a team ethos. Fixes breakdowns. We all have problems, of course we do. But does somebody blame somebody, or does somebody go in and say, how can we resolve them? Shows how it can be done, develops people, gives credit, asks and says, come on, let's go as a team. So that's the sort of message and culture for all of our managers to have with their team, so it supports the culture of the organisation. So that's really the people element. From a marketing aspect, this was actually quite important. Again, that had an influence on the team. And And one of the biggest criticisms I received at the time was the poor quality of marketing from the fabrics that were used, and I think it was the choice of fabrics on the product rather than the quality of the fabrics. And the photography, the website, the brochures, all elements of marketing just needed a complete overhaul. And it was actually having a demotivating effect. There was no lack of money spent on marketing, but it was really the style of marketing, the quality of the output. And it was the salespeople, in some respects, were embarrassed to show products. Well, if you've got a salesperson embarrassed to present a product, we're never going to be successful. So the very first thing we did was actually revamp all of our website, brochures, put emailers in place, advertising, price lists, etc. And it was as much to make a statement and to give people confidence, show that there's some investment coming into the business, to give them pride in the business they're going to represent. And that sort of, again, created that sort of platform for the growth that we saw over the next couple of years. And then in 2013-14, we had another complete brand refresh, which Paul, I'm sure, if he's still here, would have been delighted to see that we keep investing in marketing, and because it needs to show that continual evolution. And and now it's very much about this brand refresh last year was very much about building on a platform that had been created as the foundation for the next stage of our next 3-5-year business plan. So that was, again, quite critical. But one of the most important elements post that initial restructuring was the relevance of the product portfolio. And we sort of filled some gaps with, bear in mind at that stage, 2-3 years ago, we were still predominantly focused on stationery, some furniture specialists, etc. So we filled some gaps where people were saying, well, if you stop this or made this product, well, we'd buy it from you because of X. So those were the quick wins, and they weren't terribly revolutionary. Some products that didn't really differentiate us, but again, was sort of a building block. And then we started to develop a wider soft seating portfolio, because as we have heard, particularly from Gensler today, the workplace is changing, more breakout furniture, that was the trend. So let's identify a product range that fulfills that broader working practice that was coming into play. So we started those developments, and then a couple of strategic alliances that we struck. And the first one was the acquisition of the Kite Table System, and I don't know if anybody's heard of the Kite Table System, but it was actually recognised, and it's patented, as one of the most effective folding meeting and conference table systems on the market. Very heavily specified in universities, conference training facilities. Disappointing that De Vere don't have them here, but there we are. But it was actually recognised as a brand by some well-respected dealers and well-respected end users. So again, as a statement for the company's development, having a product like that immediately made us relevant to an audience that we were trying to engage with and move out of that stationery sector. So not only was it a good product, and it brought quite a lot of sales with it through the acquisition, but it was actually of strategic importance of where we wanted to go as a business. And that was a very good foundation and opened doors up earlier than we might have come to expect. Another sort of joint venture or strategic alliance was the Forecast Design product range, which this is a family of products that was actually designed by 2 Danish architects, and they came to prominence through winning a competition to design chairs for the Danish royal family. And they were then commissioned, not by us, but by a Danish company, to actually design this family of products. And this was very much, our idea here was to make it relevant at, again, the sort of mid-upper end dealer market, but also to start to get specification in the A&D market, because it was heavily specified, particularly in Scandinavia and Germany and some in the US. And so that was, again, a door to open the A&D sector for us. So, yeah, two examples there of product development that was valuable in isolation, but actually contributed to the wider plan. And then we also took on the license for the Meet You table system, that has led to opportunities for export, because something that we're also looking at the moment, and through the partnership with the company that designed that, there could be export opportunities for the wider range. So we're always looking for opportunities where it's not just the product, but it's what's the wider strategic implications. And over the last 4 years, we've probably introduced about 20 new products. So it's been a real transformation of the product range. Typically in 2010, it would have looked something along those lines. And now it sort of looks more along those lines. So as you can see, a sort of a shift in the emphasis. In terms of customers, because actually the most vital part in all of this is really we needed to understand our customer and move from the market sector that we were predominantly focused on into actually recognising there are different channels in the office market. And it wasn't just the office market, which the company predominantly ultimately sold into, and education, but there were different subsectors of that. So really dissecting the customer base, understanding who the right and most relevant customers were across the UK, categorising them, identifying their requirements, their value, their potential, and really coming up with an individual specific growth plan per customer, some of whom we didn't even know at this stage. But it was really mapping the whole market and identifying those people that were going to be successful in the future and the most relevant customers in the future, and trying to align ourselves with those. So got the right people to develop the products that are relevant now to that, or more relevant to that audience. Now let's engage with that audience that can take us on the journey of where we want to be. And that really just identifies the new element of the customer base. And then in terms of the financial aspects, then this is really how the focus on that's all come together. Very much focused on profit. 4 years ago, all the sales team and people rewarded on the sales value. Well, we changed that and focused on the gross profit generated, because it was all about maintaining, maximising margin, focus on profit generation. That's how people are rewarded. Production staff are also rewarded on profit, and production management are rewarded on their net operating profit of their areas. So it's all very much about focus on being profit orientated. In terms of maximising productivity, well, clearly we need to control our operating costs while still investing and sweating the assets that we've got. So the building that we're still in, and we've just invested quite a lot into to take us forward, 36,000 square feet, was doing 4 million, has the potential now to do about 18, 20 million. So again, it's about how can we sweat that asset to maximise the productivity from it. And then working capital efficiency, because obviously investment and developing businesses takes money, and during this period, obviously banks aren't very receptive to throwing lots of money at you cheaply. So first place we really looked was at the stock, debtors and creditors, and through working capital efficiency, we probably unearthed about £400,000 of additional working capital, which on a £4 million business is quite a lot of money that you can actually invest, and just being more efficient and again funding that growth. So we don't have any borrowings in needing to grow the business, and which was good. And then really that's the growth that we've seen since 2009-10, from the 4.1 million through to last year published accounts 8.4 million. So steady year-on-year progress. And our financial year ends tomorrow, and tomorrow, and it looks hopefully we might just achieve the £10 million target that we had. So and now we're very much focused on the next target, and all the teams are wondering, well, we're going to do next year's budget. But it really has been a huge team effort, and the great thing about it is that from a sales perspective, every salesperson has contributed to that. It hasn't been one area in isolation. It has been a huge team effort, and and it's great to see that individuals in the team have prospered personally in terms of promotion, development, and that's really the culture that we want to continue to foster and keep that progress going. So as hopefully you can tell, I've thoroughly enjoyed the last 4 years and carry on being in it, and really proud of what the team have achieved. And hopefully if there's any little snippets there that might be of interest and relevant, then glad to have shared them with you. But I think that's it. Really that's a summary, and that's just a photo we had taken recently, and all of those are family members, which again is all part of the company culture. So, but it's really the right people, flexible business plan. It wasn't actually rigid, because some of the opportunities and the joint ventures that came along, I certainly wouldn't have foreseen. So it's about being flexible, but do they fit into the overall plan, and being relevant to customers clearly, and ongoing investment and that continual evolution. So.